The NFL market is on fire, and Chicago is right in the eye of the storm. A four-time Pro Bowl cornerback with direct history in the Bears' defensive system just hit the open market, but there are some big-time reasons to stay away. At the same time, there is a linebacker whose future might be the master key to bringing an elite defender to Chicago. And to wrap it up, a defensive tackle out of Ohio State is getting the fan base hyped, while the future of another young talent on the defensive line sparked an explosive rumor that someone stepped up and shot down head-on. Stick around until the end. There is no time to waste here. News 1, Tremaine Edmunds. Look at what is going on here in Chicago and lock in, because this is not some minor move. The Bears just gave linebacker Tremaine Edmunds permission to search for a trade before simply cutting ties. And that by itself already tells me there is a strategic mind working at Halas Hall. Ryan Poles is not the kind of general manager who just lets players walk without trying to squeeze every last drop of value out of the situation. And in this case, I really do think Poles is playing high-level chess that a lot of fans still are not seeing clearly yet. Let us talk numbers first, because the numbers matter here. Edmunds represents up to $15 million in cap savings for the Bears. That money, in the context of this team's salary cap, is vital. But what I find really interesting, and what I want you to understand today, is not just the cap savings. It is what Edmunds can be as trade bait in a serious negotiation. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN reported that teams like the Tennessee Titans, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the New York Giants have interest in Edmunds. Fowler literally said Edmunds has solid trade value given the experience and the age. 27 years old, 8 seasons in the league. That is a linebacker a lot of teams would need, and a lot of coordinators would immediately recognize as someone who can help from day one. But let me throw something important at you. What is more valuable for the Bears right now, a 3rd or 4th round pick, or using Edmunds as the perfect hook to land an impact defender who changes the face of this team? I am telling you this, and I hope you really hear it. Day 3 NFL picks are a crapshoot. They are lottery tickets. A 4th round pick might turn into a roster player or might turn into nothing, but an impact defender with years of proven production changes the game right now. Let us break down the 3 teams Fowler mentioned, and I want to give you my honest take on each scenario, because they are not all equally realistic, and a couple of them are clearly better than the others for the Bears. Let us start with the Las Vegas Raiders and the name every Bears fan has stuck in the head right now, Max Crosby. The most dominant pass rusher the Raiders have, and one of the best in the entire NFL at that position. The big question all over Chicago is if the Bears could include Edmunds in a package along with a 1st round pick in 2026 and maybe some extra day 2 pick to avoid giving up multiple firsts. I think it is possible, but I will also say this. If the Raiders refuse to come down on the price, even with Edmunds included, Chicago should walk away from that negotiation without looking back. I already laid out why before, and I am not going to repeat the whole math again. But it just does not add up if the cost is sky high, even with Edmunds as a sweetener. Now let us move over to the New York Giants and Kayvon Thibodeau. And this, Chicago fans, this is where I see the real opening. Thibodeau is only 24 years old, big-time talent. The Giants apparently are willing to move on for the right return. And if the Bears can put Edmunds on the table plus a late day 2 pick, that might be enough to get New York to bite. Let me ask you this. Would you not rather have Thibodeau in Chicago right now than roll the dice on a late draft pick? To me, the answer is obvious. Thibodeau in Dennis Allen's system, paired with what this team already has on the defensive line, is a setup that genuinely gets me fired up. As for the Tennessee Titans, I have them clearly in 3rd place in this whole picture. The only real high-value player on that roster right now is Jeffrey Simmons, and that player is not going anywhere unless somebody shows up with an absolutely ridiculous package. People threw out the idea of offering Edmunds, DJ Moore, and a 2nd round pick for Simmons, but let us be real, that has almost no shot of actually happening. The Titans are not moving Simmons for that, and the Bears should not be moving DJ Moore under those conditions. I strongly believe the smartest move on the board for Chicago right now is to call the New York Giants. Use Edmunds as part of a creative package. Bring Thibodeau to Chicago. That is smart football. That is Ryan Poles doing exactly what the job demands. Be creative, be aggressive when the situation calls for it, and build the most competitive roster possible without blowing up the franchise's future. And I want you to think about this. Poles is not just freeing up a massive amount of cap space. With this move, Poles is using assets intelligently. Poles is turning a player who was going to be gone anyway into a potential leverage piece that could bring a top-tier defensive difference maker to Chicago. That is not some average general manager. That is a general manager playing several moves ahead. Now, if the negotiations fall through and Edmunds just gets released or goes out the door for a day 3 pick, it is still not the end of the world. The $15 million in cap savings gives Poles the flexibility needed to work in free agency and in the draft. But I really do hope Poles takes a swing at the creative move first. Pick up the phone and call the Giants. Have that conversation, because if there is a window to bring Thibodeau to Chicago, this is exactly that window. Bear down, Chicago. This is getting very interesting. News too, Gervon Dexter, Caden McDonald. And if that move already has you fired up, hang on tight, because now we're getting into a story that first set off alarms all over Bears fandom, and then somebody came in and put out the fire hard. Let us talk about defensive tackle Gervon Dexter and what is actually going on with the future in Chicago. During last week's NFL Scouting Combine, insider Jordan Schultz reported that teams had reached out to the Bears asking about Dexter. Schultz put out on social that this year's free agent and draft market for defensive tackles is not very deep, and that is what is driving interest in Dexter, who is 24 years old, started all 17 games last season, and has 13.5 career sacks with 42 quarterback hits. That is real production. That is the kind of player teams are going to want, and I get why that report lit up the fans. If there is a young, productive defensive tackle on the roster, still cheap because this is the last year of the rookie deal, of course teams are going to check in. It is obvious. The problem is, those reports sometimes create totally unnecessary panic in the fan base. And in this case, I think that panic was exactly that. Unnecessary, because Brad Biggs from the Chicago Tribune, one of the reporters most plugged in with the Bears organization, came out and shut that report down during a hit on 670 The Score this Monday. And Biggs was blunt about it, no sugarcoating, said straight up the Bears are not taking calls on that player, they are not making calls on that player, and there is nothing happening on that front. On top of that, Biggs pointed out that Chicago only has 2 defensive tackles under contract, and they have zero intention of moving either one. I am telling you this with complete conviction. The Bears' stance makes all the sense in the world. Moving Gervon Dexter right now would be a massive mistake for this organization. Dexter had a 2025 season where there were 21 total tackles and 6 sacks, a career high, 6 sacks from the interior tackle spot. Not a defensive end, an interior tackle generating consistent pressure. That is the kind of player a lot of teams around the NFL would love to have, and the kind of player Chicago still has on the books for this year. And here is the key question. With the Bears needing badly to upgrade the defensive line, needing to generate a lot more consistent pressure inside, what sense would it make to ship out one of the few players already producing at that position? None. Absolutely none. Now, the fact that the Bears are all in on Dexter does not mean they are going to ignore the need to reinforce the interior of the defensive line. And this is where the draft piece fits in perfectly, because there is a defensive tackle out of Ohio State who has a lot of analysts really excited and who has been tied to the Bears in multiple mock drafts this year. Caden McDonald, 6'3", 326 pounds, is exactly the type of player defensive coordinators dream about. Not a one-trick pony, a complete player who can impact the game both against the run and on passing downs. And in Dennis Allen's defensive scheme, that is huge. McDonald went on the Between the Hash Marks podcast, and what was said there really nails the mindset this team needs up front. The message was clear. There is pride in being a complete player. On rundowns, the job is to shut down the ground game, and on third down, the job is to collapse the pocket. If there is no path to the quarterback, get those hands up. The way to take the game to another level is to turn pressures into sacks and give the offense more chances to get the ball, move down the field, and score to win. That is the mindset for leveling up once the league is within reach. That is not the mindset of someone walking into the NFL just trying to survive. That is the mindset of someone walking in to take over, and McDonald's numbers at Ohio State back that up. Last season, there were 65 total tackles, a career high, along with 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery. All that at Ohio State, where the competition just to get snaps on that roster is brutal before even talking about Big Ten opponents. And when asked about the pass rush arsenal, McDonald broke it down. There is a quick swim move and a power rush with a club move, but what really jumped out was the line about playing off effort. If you put on the tape, in those 4-quarter games in the biggest matchups, that player shows up and shows up at a high level. That, Chicago fans, is exactly what we want to hear. Because in the NFL, in the games that matter most, the players who show up are the ones who swing entire seasons. And if McDonald can carry that big game mindset and production into the league, the Bears could end up with a real difference maker inside. I think if the Bears can keep Dexter, who is already producing and still growing in the system, and on top of that land McDonald in the April draft, the interior of Chicago's defensive line could look completely different going into 2026. Different in the best way. Different in the sense that opposing quarterbacks are going to feel that interior heat a lot more regularly than in past years, and Dennis Allen knows exactly how to deploy that kind of player. There's a whole track record as a defensive coordinator to prove it. If McDonald lands in Chicago and Allen is able to develop the talent the right way, we might be talking about one of the smartest picks in the entire 2026 draft. Bear down, the interior of the Bears' defensive line might be on the verge of becoming one of this team's real strengths. And after years of needing urgent help at that spot, that is the kind of news that should get every navy blue and orange fan in this city fired up. News 3, Marshon Lattimore. And to close this video out with the level of breakdown you deserve, there is something in the free agent market right now that is absolutely going to spark debate among Bears fans. The Washington Commanders just released cornerback Marshon Lattimore, and that move has direct implications for Chicago for some very specific reasons that I am going to lay out in detail. First, the background. Lattimore was drafted 11th overall in the 2017 draft by the New Orleans Saints, 4-time Pro Bowler, 11 seasons in the NFL, one of the best outside corners in the league for several years with the Saints. And what makes this especially relevant for the Bears is the direct connection to Dennis Allen, Chicago's defensive coordinator. Lattimore spent 8 seasons in Allen's system in New Orleans. Allen knows that player inside out. Knows exactly how to use that skill set, knows the strengths, and knows the limitations. There's even a timing detail that I find fascinating. Lattimore was traded from the Saints to Washington the day after Allen was fired in New Orleans. Almost like both things were part of the same transition moment in that organization, and now with Allen set in as the Bears' defensive coordinator, Lattimore hits the market again, and I completely understand why a lot of fans are going to look at this and say, Allen already brought in C.J. Gardner-Johnson and DeMarco Jackson from those Saints ties, and both of those moves worked out. There was even an attempt to get Chicago to trade for Alontae Taylor before last season's deadline. So the idea of bringing in another former Allen player is not coming out of nowhere. There is already a track record for it in this front office. Let me ask straight up, do the Bears need a quality outside corner? The honest answer is yes. Nahshon Wright is heading into free agency, and the confidence in Tyreek Stevenson stepping up into a true starter role is not exactly rock solid right now. Lining up Jaylon Johnson plus another high-end outside corner on the other side sounds really nice on paper. And Lattimore at the peak was exactly that kind of player. But I am going to say this just as clearly. The Bears should stay away from Marshon Lattimore, and I am going to walk you through why. Because this is not a surface level take. This is rooted in the numbers and in what this organization actually needs right now. First, Lattimore's availability over the last 4 years is flat out alarming. 10 or fewer games played in each of the last 4 seasons. That is not a fluke. That is a pattern. In the NFL, an outside corner who cannot stay on the field consistently is a massive risk, especially when that position usually commands real money for a player with that resume. Second, the 2025 season in Washington was messy. Only 9 games played and 9 penalties in those 9 games. a penalty a game on average. That is not the profile of a corner you can just throw out there and trust to stay disciplined when things get tight. And in Allen's system, where discipline and coverage is absolutely non-negotiable, that is a major red flag. Third, and this might be the biggest factor, Lattimore is coming off a torn ACL. That alone raises serious questions about how much of the high-end version is even left. The Washington Commanders freed up $18.5 million in cap space by cutting ties. That should tell you a whole lot about how that front office weighed the risk of sticking with that player. And the Bears fans are already in a tight cap situation this year. Ryan Poles has to be surgical with every dollar. Putting serious money into a 29-year-old corner coming off a major knee injury with a shaky availability history and a recent season full of flags is not the kind of move that pushes this team to the next level. Now, and this part matters, there are other Allen-connected players who I do think are really interesting options. Players like Trey Hendrickson, Demario Davis, or Cameron Jordan. Those are the profiles I would be looking at hard if I were in Poles' seat. Players who know the system, who have shown consistent production, and who can help right away in Allen's Chicago defense. But Lattimore right now, with all those red flags, is not the right bet for this organization. There are better ways to upgrade that outside corner spot, whether it is in the April draft or in free agency with lower risk, more reliable options. Because at the end of the day, Bears fans deserve a team that makes smart decisions, that does not get blinded by the shine of a big name when the current reality of that player raises way too many questions. And I think Poles understands that. I think this Bears front office has enough discipline to walk away from this one. Chicago is not here to play games with the cap space. Chicago is building to win in a sustainable way, and that means saying no when the situation calls for it, even when the name on the front of the jersey comes with 4 Pro Bowls in the past. Bear down, Chicago. These are the stories that matter today. Stick around because this is not even close to over. All right, Bears Nation, we are at the end of this video, and I need to hear from you because everything we just broke down has real implications for this team's future. On Tremaine Edmunds, I think the smartest play the Bears can make is using Edmunds as a sweetener in a deal with the New York Giants to bring Kayvon Thibodeaux to Chicago. But I want to know what you think. Would you rather see the Bears use Edmunds to pry Thibodeaux away from the Giants? Or would you rather roll the dice and chase the Max Crosby pipeline with the Raiders, even if it costs a lot more draft capital? Drop it in the comments right now because that is the conversation I want to have with you on Gervon Dexter and Caden McDonald. To me, keeping Dexter and drafting McDonald in April would be one of the sharpest moves this organization could make for the interior of the defensive line. But I am asking you straight up, do you think Caden McDonald has the game to make an impact as a rookie in the NFL, or is there going to be a longer development curve before turning into the disruptor Chicago needs? Let me know in the comments. And on Marshon Lattimore, I laid it out clearly that the Bears should stay away from that signing in spite of the connection with Dennis Allen. Do you agree with that stance? Or do you think Allen could get something out of Lattimore that nobody else can? I want to read the arguments down below. These 3 questions are what is going to drive today's conversation in this community. And I want every single one of you involved because this channel is not just me talking into a camera. This channel is a family of Bears fans who love this city, love this team, and deserve the best breakdowns out there every time real news hits. If this video gave you value today, if you learned something, if you're walking away with a different angle on any of these stories, then do the simplest thing you could do to support the work. Hit like on this video right now and subscribe to the channel if that has not happened yet. That lets the YouTube algorithm know this content deserves to reach more Bears fans, and that helps this community grow. And if you are already subscribed, share this video with that friend who always has a take on the Bears but still has not found this channel. Bring more family into the conversation because the more voices we have, the better the debate and the stronger this community gets. This is Miguel Morales, Bear Truth, and I am telling you right now that tomorrow we have more explosive Bears news that you cannot miss. This offseason is just getting started and Ryan Poles is nowhere near done. Stay locked in. Turn on the notification bell so you do not miss a single thing that is coming. Bear down, Chicago, Da Bears. Until next time, family, and always remember, this city deserves to win, and we are going to be here documenting every step of the way until that moment gets here. See you soon.